Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into a really critical and frankly tragic moment in history, the Spanish Civil War.
Absolutely. And for those of you studying this period, you'll know that when General Franco launched his revolt in July 1936, it wasn't just a Spanish affair.
No, not at all. It almost instantly became something else entirely.
It became the ultimate proxy war. It's the place where Hitler and Mussolini really decided to, test their weapons, their ideologies, and their diplomatic strength against Britain and France.
So our mission today is to cut through all that complexity. We've got some fantastic source material here, military reports, diplomatic memos, all sorts, and we're going to distill the why and the how behind the German and Italian intervention.
Right. This is all about turning those basic revision facts into genuine insight for you. And what's immediately clear is that the motives were far more cynical than just simple anti-communism.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. The initial spark. Franco's revolt is underway, but he's got a problem, doesn't he?
A huge one. His best troops, the Army of Africa, are stuck. He can't get them to the mainland.
So he sends out an urgent call for help, specifically for air transport.
And Germany answers. That's the catalyst. But once they're in, we get the official justifications, which Hermann Göring lays out pretty clearly after the war.
He gives two main reasons, and the first one is the one everyone knows. Ideology.
Exactly. The public line was that they had to prevent the spread of communism. Hitler saw the government in Madrid as a potential Soviet Spain.
He called it a world peril, I think.
He did. An attack on Bolshevism. It was the perfect political cover. But it's Göring's second reason, where things get really interesting.
The military testing.
Yes. He was surprisingly honest about it. He said, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, I wanted to test my young Luftwaffe in this or that technical respect.
So they were specifically using Spain to see if their new planes, their new guns, if the material was, as he put it, equal to the task.
Precisely. It wasn't just a war. It was a massive live-fire R&D department, which, is a really crucial insight.
It is. So let's move beyond that,
Got it.
because the strategic and economic calculus for Hitler was maybe even more compelling.
Oh, absolutely. If you connect this to Germany's wider rearmament plans, you see the economic driver immediately. Hitler was obsessed with self-sufficiency.
Autarky.
Autarky. And for that, he needed raw materials for the coming war.
Yes.
And Spain had them.
We're talking about minerals, right?
Right.
Iron ore, copper.
The rich deposits, yes. And they were mostly in the territory the nationalists held. The sources are incredibly blunt about this.
There's one quote from Hitler in June 1937 that just lays it all out.
It's so cynical.
Yeah.
He basically says, Germany needs to import ore. That is why we want a nationalist government in Spain, so that we may be able to buy Spanish ore.
It doesn't get much clearer than that. It just grounds the whole thing in cold, hard necessity for the future war machine.
It does. But then there's the other big strategic prize, distraction. And this is the part that can be tricky to get your head around for revision.
You mean why Hitler would want to prolong the war? It seems totally counterintuitive. You're backing aside, surely you want them to win quickly.
You'd think so. But keeping the conflict burning served these two, brilliant and terrible strategic goals. It was all about his plans for the rest of Europe.
Okay, so what were those goals? How did it affect Britain and France?
First, the distraction itself was incredibly effective. It kept Britain, France, and Italy all focused on the Mediterranean. It kept them, as one source says, at loggerheads with each other.
Preventing a united front against Germany.
Exactly. And the second goal was all about Mussolini. Hitler's big fear was the Stresa Pact, that old alliance of Italy, Britain, and France designed to contain Germany.
So by getting Mussolini tangled up in Spain,
He drove a wedge between them. He made Italy dependent on German support. And this meant that when Hitler was ready to move on Austria, Italy wouldn't or couldn't oppose him.
the sources actually say that, don't they? That it would make taking Austria much easier.
Explicitly. The Spanish Civil War was a key preparatory move for the Anschluss. It was an astonishingly calculated plan.
And for France, the immediate consequence was another hostile border?
A third unfriendly fascist power on its borders? It was a strategic nightmare for them, weakening Germany's main rival in the West before the World War had even started.
Which brings us to the military reality on the ground. This was a massive commitment of forces, wasn't it? Let's talk numbers.
The scale is just staggering. Germany sent its famous Condor Legion. That was about 16,000 soldiers serving in rotation over the 3 years.
And they brought their newest toys. Tanks, artillery, and over 100 new aircraft.
They did. But we have to remember, Italy sent the bulk of the manpower. Mussolini's commitment was much heavier in terms of boots on the ground.
That's the Corpo Troop Voluntary, or CTV.
Right. He deployed somewhere between 70,000 and 75,000 troops, plus hundreds of aircraft, tanks, artillery pieces. They fought in major ground battles.
So the Italians were the heavy infantry, and the Germans were more focused on the technology and the air power.
That's a good way of looking at it. Spain became the crucible, where they tested their new equipment against the Soviet hardware that was supporting the Republicans.
And the star of the show for the Germans was the Messerschmitt 109.
Oh, for sure. They tested 4 different versions of the Me-109, perfecting these rapid, agile fighter tactics. They created a whole cadre of experienced combat pilots.
But it wasn't just the hardware, was it? It was the doctrine, the method. This is where we see Blitzkrieg taking shape.
Yes, the source material is very clear that the tactics of modern mobile warfare were developed and established right there in Spain.
So when we say Blitzkrieg, we mean what exactly?
We mean combined arms warfare, the rapid, coordinated use of tanks and armored units on the ground, supported directly by tactical air power.
So the planes aren't just bombing cities far away, they're working right alongside the tanks.
Exactly. Breaking through enemy lines, preventing them from regrouping. They practiced the air-to-ground communication, the speed, the deep penetration, everything they would later unleash on Poland and France.
And this perfected use of air power for terror and tactical support. It leads us to Guernica.
It does. The bombing of Guernica in April 1937 became the symbol of this new, terrifying kind of warfare.
And it wasn't a military target.
No, not in any meaningful sense. It was a small, rural city, just 5,000 people. The sources say the attack, which Franco approved, began at 4:30 in the afternoon.
The busiest hour of market day.
The busiest hour. The attack went on for 3 hours. German planes just pouring down bombs and gunfire, completely unopposed.
The reports are just harrowing. Fighters machine gunning civilians. They tried to flee into the fields.
It's brutal. A third of the city's inhabitants killed or wounded. Fires burned for days. It was a deliberate act of terror.
An act famously captured by Pablo Picasso, of course. It became this huge symbol of the horror of modern aerial bombing.
It did. And that brutal reality had immediate consequences on the diplomatic stage, completely reshaping alliances. So what was Hitler's biggest takeaway from the world's reaction?
Confidence, wasn't it? Pure confidence.
Absolutely. He learned that Britain and France were paralyzed. Their total inability to act decisively, even after something like Guernica, told him they probably wouldn't intervene against him in the future.
And this paralysis was summed up by the Non-Intervention Committee.
What a joke that was. It was supposed to stop foreign interference, but Germany and Italy just ignored it. Meanwhile, Britain and France stuck to the policy, which effectively starved the Republicans of legal aid.
Which in turn must have made the Soviet Union deeply suspicious.
Deeply. They saw their supposed allies just standing by, leaving the Republicans to rely on Soviet aid and the international brigades. You can draw a straight line from that sense of betrayal to the Nazi-Soviet pact in 1939.
At the same time, the war was cementing the alliance between Hitler and Mussolini.
It was the glue that held the Rome-Berlin axis together. It convinced Mussolini they had to confront the Western powers shoulder to shoulder with Germany. It was maybe the biggest diplomatic victory for Hitler.
Okay, so let's bring this all together for you, the learner. The Spanish Civil War was, without a doubt, a dress rehearsal.
It was. And German and Italian motives were this complex mix. Anti-communism was the cover story, arms testing was a military must-have, securing war was an economic necessity, and the strategic manipulation that was about isolating France and getting Italy on side.
Right, and that's the key takeaway. But there's this central conflict in the sources we need to highlight.
The huge investment. You have 16,000 German soldiers, 70,000 Italian troops, massive resources. Yet, the goal for Hitler, we've established, was to prolong the war.
Which leaves us with a final provocative question for you to think about. Given that huge scale of commitment and the clear strategic goal of making the takeover of Austria easier, what was the true primary driver for Hitler in Spain?
Was it the immediate ideological fight against communism? Or was it the calculated long-term strategic advantage that was bought with a longer, bloodier war for the Spanish people?
The sources give evidence for both. But the timeline of what happened next, the Anschluss, the Axis, it really suggests one was more important than the other.
It was history's first, and maybe its costliest, dress rehearsal.
A fascinating and chilling paradox to mull over. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this breakdown gives you the structural insight you need to master this pivotal piece of history.